All right, so welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
You know the drill, you send to the sources,
Mm-hmm.
and we pull out the gems
Absolutely.
so you can get a grip on big ideas quickly and have some fun along the way.
That's right.
Today we're tackling a book that a bunch of you have asked about.
Oh, yeah, this one's been popular.
Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life.
A classic.
Now, this book is pretty dense, so
It's a big one.
think of this as like the express lane through it,
Fast track.
highlighting the ideas that really pack a punch.
The need to knows.
Exactly.
You know what always strikes me about Peterson's writing?
What's that?
He's got this knack for talking about these really profound things,
Yeah.
but in a way that feels like you're just chatting with him.
Yeah.
You know, like you're sitting across the dinner table or something.
Yeah, he's got that approachable vibe for sure.
And apparently it's not just an act.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a friend of his once said that Peterson would just launch into these deep philosophical discussions as easily as he'd talk about the weather or what he had for breakfast.
So it's just how he is.
Seems like he's just got this genuine enthusiasm for sharing these complex ideas in a way that anyone can grasp.
I love that, and that's exactly what we're going for today.
For sure.
So as we dig into 12 Rules for Life,
Mm-hmm.
our mission is to unpack a few of its central themes.
Sounds good.
Things like how we navigate the unknown,
That's a big one.
the interplay of chaos and order,
Right.
and the underlying principles that seem to connect with people from all walks of life.
Those universal truths.
Right, exactly.
One of the foundational ideas in the book is about shared belief systems and morality.
Okay.
Peterson argues that when we share a common understanding of right and wrong, our actions become predictable to each other.
So we know what to expect.
Exactly. And that predictability allows us to cooperate
Okay.
and essentially makes the world a more manageable place.
Right.
He uses this great metaphor of the great ship of state to illustrate this.
Oh, I like that. What does that even mean?
So basically, when those shared understandings are threatened, the whole ship starts rocking.
I see. So it's like everyone needs to agree on the rules of the road, so to speak.
Exactly. If everyone's following the same traffic laws, things run smoothly.
Makes sense. But what happens when those societal rules start breaking down or are questioned?
That's where the book takes a critical look at moral relativism,
Okay.
which is this idea that morality is subjective,
Like it's all relative.
right? Just personal opinion or cultural preference.
So there's no right or wrong.
Well, that's the argument. Peterson points out how this idea has become quite influential.
I've definitely heard that.
Right. And some even claim that morality is just a tool for one group to exert power over another.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and this often leads to an overemphasis on tolerance.
Like everyone has to accept everything.
Yeah, to the point where any form of judgment is seen as inherently wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so adults become afraid to offer guidance because there's no objective right or wrong to impart.
I can see how that would be a problem.
Yeah, so think about what the practical implications of that would be.
It's like if everything is relative, then who am I to say what's best?
Exactly.
But the book then contrasts this with the figure of the ideologue.
Oh, yeah.
Someone who, despite claiming to believe in this uncertainty of relativism,
Right.
is often extremely judgmental themselves.
Yeah, like a walking contradiction.
Total hypocrite.
Right, and Peterson offers an alternative perspective.
Okay, I'm listening.
He suggests that real meaning in life isn't about chasing happiness.
That's a bold statement.
It is, but rather about developing your character through facing life's inevitable suffering.
So it's about growth through hardship.
Yeah, he even mentions this radio show he did called Just Say No to Happiness.
Wow.
And he echoes Solzhenitsyn, who said that the idea of humans being created solely for happiness is a pitiful ideology that life will quickly shatter.
Yeah, life is definitely not all sunshine and rainbows.
So maybe ask yourself, are you focusing on avoiding discomfort or on building resilience?
That's a good question for everyone to ponder. Absolutely. Now, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The book delves into the concepts of chaos and order,
Right.
and not just as philosophical abstractions,
Right.
but as fundamental forces that are always at play.
Kind of like the Taoist principles of yin and yang.
Yes, exactly.
What's fascinating is their constant interplay and how they can transform into one another.
How so?
Nothing is so stable that it can't change, and nothing is so chaotic that it can't become ordered in some way.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think about nature leaves change quickly, trees take much longer, and entire forests evolve over vast periods.
Right.
Same with weather, it can change drastically in a day, but climate change happens over decades or centuries.
That's a good point.
So nature is both dynamic and static.
And different levels.
Exactly. And this reflects what Peterson calls the conservatism of evolution.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means that new developments build upon what already exists.
Ah, I see.
So change and stability aren't opposites, they're two sides of the same coin.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
And the book makes this point that the most influential order isn't always the most visible,
Like what?
like those dominance hierarchies that shape interactions in the animal kingdom.
Okay.
And let's be real, they exist in human societies too often, operating below the surface.
So the pecking order is always there, even if we don't see it.
Exactly.
Okay, so if chaos and order are always interacting, how can we understand them individually?
Well, chaos can be seen as the realm of formless potential and freedom,
Okay,
the unexplored territory.
the unknown.
Right. Order, on the other hand, represents the familiar, the structured.
Things like societal rules.
Exactly. Routines, predictability, the things we crave.
So life exists in the tension between these two forces.
Precisely. It's about finding the balance between stability and openness to explore and grow.
That makes a lot of sense.
So this leads us to the book's discussion of hierarchy and productivity.
All right.
Peterson introduces Price's law, which you might know as the Pareto principle or the Matthew principle.
I've heard of the Pareto principle.
Right. It basically states that a small percentage of people tend to produce most of the output.
Or hold most of the resources.
Exactly.
It's like the 80-20 rule.
Right. And what's striking is how this principle shows up everywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think about wealth distribution.
Okay.
Populations of cities where a few major centers hold most of the people.
Right.
Even the distribution of mass in the universe.
Wow.
Or language where a small number of words make up most of our communication.
That's wild.
The Matthew principle sums it up nicely. To those who have more will be given from those who have not even fully. What they have will be taken.
So inequality is baked into the system.
In a way, yes. It's often a natural outcome of how systems organize themselves.
That's a bit unsettling.
It can be, but it's important to understand.
And how does this tie into the idea of territory?
Well, the book uses lobsters as an example.
Lobsters?
Yeah, I know it sounds strange,
A little bit.
but it illustrates the consequences of winning and losing in these hierarchical struggles.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So when a lobster loses a fight, it doesn't just lose the fight.
Right.
It can actually undergo biological changes.
Like what?
Its brain restructures to be more suited to a subordinate role.
So it's like it's wired for defeat.
In a way, yes, and this highlights the deep biological roots of status and the impact of setbacks.
And we can probably relate to that as humans.
Absolutely. Think about major failures in careers or relationships. They can really shake us up.
They can definitely change you.
And the book also mentions the conservatism of evolution here.
Okay, you mentioned that earlier. What's that about again?
It's about how fundamental biological designs are preserved over vast evolutionary distances.
Give me an example.
Sure, like the similar skeletal structures in bats, humans, and whales.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
So even creatures that seem very different share a common blueprint.
So what's the takeaway from the lobster example?
It shows that even seemingly simple creatures demonstrate the importance of hierarchy and status.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connections here.
Good. Now let's switch gears and talk about feedback loops.
Okay.
The book explains this concept using a really clear analogy.
Okay, lay it on me.
That awful screeching sound you get at a concert when the microphone's too close to the speakers.
Oh, yeah, that ear-splitting feedback.
Exactly. That's a positive feedback loop where the sound keeps amplifying itself.
And it just gets worse and worse.
Right. Peterson also talks about negative feedback loops,
Okay,
like the cycle of addiction.
go on.
For example, the initial pleasure of alcohol can lead to withdrawal symptoms,
Right.
which then makes you want to drink more to alleviate those symptoms.
It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. He also gives examples of positive feedback loops in anxiety disorders,
Like what?
like agoraphobia, where avoiding a feared situation actually reinforces the fear.
So it just keeps getting worse.
Right. Have you ever noticed a small fear growing into something much bigger because you avoided it?
I think we've all been there.
And these feedback loops aren't just happening in our minds. They also play out in our social interactions.
Oh, interesting. Like how...
Well, like with bullying,
Okay.
a lack of resistance from the victim can actually encourage the bully to continue.
So it's like a feedback loop of negativity.
Exactly. And here's another interesting point the book makes.
Okay.
Suppressing your anger.
Which seems like the mature thing to do.
Right. It can actually make it harder to stand up against depression in the long run.
Oh, that's counterintuitive.
It is. And your body language can create social feedback loops, too.
Really? How so?
If you present yourself as defeated, slumped posture, avoiding eye contact,
Yeah.
you'll not only feel that way internally,
Right.
but others might treat you as if you're losing.
So it reinforces the negative feelings.
Exactly. Something as simple as straightening your posture can change how people interact with you.
That's pretty powerful.
It is. It shows how we influence and are influenced by our social environment.
Okay, so moving on to another important theme.
Mm-hmm.
The problem of malevolence and self-consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The book connects this to the biblical story of Adam and Eve,
Okay.
gaining the knowledge of good and evil,
Right.
and their subsequent realization of their vulnerability and capacity for causing pain.
That's a heavy one.
It is. What's important here is the distinction Peterson makes between predators acting out of biological need,
Like hunger.
right, and humans who are aware of our own and others' vulnerabilities.
Because of self-consciousness.
Exactly. And this awareness sadly opens the door to what he calls inspired cruelty.
Humans are capable of some pretty awful things.
So in this context, self-respect and self-care aren't just selfish indulgences.
Right.
They're moral obligations.
Because we recognize our own inherent value and our role in the world.
This leads us to the book's exploration of rules and discipline.
Okay.
It starts with the idea that territory matters.
Whether it's physical space or metaphorical domains.
Right. And because the best resources are always limited, conflict is inevitable.
It's the law of the jungle.
In a way, yes. And that's where rules come in to manage those interactions.
So rules create order.
Exactly.
And the book highlights the crucial role of parents in guiding and socializing children.
Right. Kids need structure.
They do. And Peterson acknowledges that kids have different temperaments.
So one size fits all, parenting doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. He emphasizes that when an adult sets a boundary and says no, there needs to be a clear consequence if that boundary is crossed.
Otherwise, the rules mean nothing.
Exactly. When adults are perceived as ineffectual, the rules lose their power.
It's like kids can smell weakness.
They can, and the book also discusses the negative impacts of father-absent homes.
Right.
And the importance of both positive reinforcement and thoughtful, consistent consequences.
So a balance of support and discipline.
Yeah, to help children develop into well-adjusted individuals.
What about you? What kind of boundaries and consequences shaped you growing up?
Well, my parents were definitely strict, but also very loving.
It sounds like they found a good balance.
I think so.
I found the book's reference to Sleeping Beauty really interesting.
Really? What do you mean?
It's presented as an allegory for the dangers of overprotection.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
By shielding their daughter from all negativity,
Right.
the king and queen actually made her more vulnerable.
To the very thing they were trying to protect her from.
Exactly. It's like they didn't let her develop the skills she needed to face the real world.
So it's a cautionary tale about finding the right balance.
Yeah, between protection and allowing for necessary challenges.
And the main message is that in a functioning society, rules aren't arbitrary.
Right.
They're there for a reason. They aim for mutual benefit or at least peaceful coexistence.
Makes sense.
And children who aren't properly socialized struggle to navigate life's complexities.
So effective socialization is crucial.
Absolutely.
Now let's dive into the dangers of lies and inauthenticity.
Okay.
This is a theme that runs throughout the book.
It does. Peterson describes living a lie as an attempt to manipulate reality.
To fit what you want.
Right, based on two flawed assumptions.
What are they?
First, that we know everything we need to know.
Okay.
And second, that reality as it is somehow intolerable.
So you reject reality because you think you know better.
Yeah, and the book compares this to Satan's pride in Milton's Paradise Lost.
So it's a pretty serious transgression.
It is, and what's key is the link between inauthenticity and blaming others when things go wrong.
Oh, that makes sense.
When you're not living in accordance with your values, it's easier to point fingers outward.
Then to take responsibility.
Exactly. The book also emphasizes the conscious nature of lying.
So it's a deliberate choice.
It is, and it has a negative effect on both your integrity and on society as a whole.
It erodes trust.
Yeah, think about it. Have you ever noticed how one lie can lead to a web of deception?
Oh yeah, it can snowball pretty quickly.
It can, and the book stresses the importance of confronting our own ignorance and our potential for wrongdoing.
Instead of pretending we're perfect.
Exactly. We need to be willing to make friends with what we don't know.
I like that.
And this courage to face the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, can lead to positive growth.
Even if it means conflict.
Yeah. There's a quote from Matthew 10:34. Think not that I have come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword.
So sometimes truth brings division, but it's still necessary.
Exactly.
This leads naturally to the importance of truth and active listening.
Right?
Peterson highlights the value of listening to others without judging, to really understand them,
Yeah, he contrasts this with conversations that are just dominance displays.
where people just want to win.
Right. They're not actually interested in connecting.
And he also makes this point about how we outsource our sanity.
By paying attention to social feedback.
Right. We look to others to see if our words and actions are appropriate.
Exactly. Their reactions tell us whether we're fitting in.
Think about how you adjust your behavior based on the people you're with.
We all do it. It's part of being social creatures.
So the book then gets into the complexity of reality and the limits of our perception. Our brains are constantly working to simplify the world around us.
Which is incredibly intricate and chaotic.
Right. We only perceive a tiny fraction of what's actually happening.
And we think we have a complete picture until things go wrong.
It's the illusion shatters.
Exactly. And this can be really unsettling.
So people avoid confronting problems because they're afraid of the chaos.
And the potential for unpleasant self-discovery.
It's easier to just look away.
But Peterson warns that ignored reality doesn't go away.
It just gets worse.
It can fester and grow into what he calls a reptilian monster of the unknown.
That's a scary image.
It is, and it highlights the role of language in helping us make sense of the world.
By naming things and categorizing them.
Right. It makes the chaos feel more manageable.
So the takeaway is that facing uncomfortable truths, even small ones,
Can prevent them from becoming overwhelming later on.
deal with it now or it'll come back to bite you.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's get into one of the most profound aspects of the book.
Okay.
The inevitability of suffering and the search for meaning. That's a big one.
It is. Peterson references Tolstoy's observation about the stupidity of the joke being played on us.
Leading to despair and violence.
Right. He even connects this to the prevalence of mass killings.
As a manifestation of existential frustration.
The book then reframes the concept of sin.
Not just as a religious idea.
Right, but as a failure to prepare for known necessities.
A failure to hit the mark.
Exactly. And this is contrasted with blaming external circumstances for our problems.
So it's about taking responsibility?
Yes. And the biblical story of paradise and the fall is interpreted as a story about the dawn of self-consciousness.
The realization of our vulnerability and mortality.
And the introduction of sacrifice.
As a way to navigate this new reality.
So how do you respond to life's challenges?
Do you prepare and take responsibility or look for someone else to blame?
That's the question.
And sacrifice is linked to our capacity for delayed gratification.
Giving up something now for something better later.
Exactly, which is a uniquely human ability. The book explores the idea of the most pleasing sacrifice and our desire for the best possible future.
Connecting this to moral principles like reliability, honesty, and generosity.
Right.
And the sacrifice of Christ is presented as the ultimate act of giving for the sake of something better.
Giving everything for the greater good.
And Peterson also gives the example of Socrates heeding his divine sign.
That inner voice of wisdom.
Right. It shows the importance of listening to your own internal guidance.
In the pursuit of truth and meaning.
Exactly.
And this brings us to the book's exploration of the struggle between good and evil.
Which Peterson says exists within each of us.
Right, he uses the story of Cain and Abel.
The hostile brothers.
To represent this internal conflict between our higher aspirations and our destructive impulses.
So it's not just a battle out there in the world.
It's also a battle within ourselves.
The book also uses the myth of Horus and Set.
Where confronting evil leads to both damage and potential growth.
Right, you gain wisdom through facing darkness.
And Christ's temptations in the desert.
Choosing higher values over immediate gratification.
Even in extreme hardship.
These stories show the enduring human struggle with difficult choices.
And the potential for growth through those challenges.
Then the book shifts to a more philosophical discussion. Nietzsche's concept of the death of God.
And its potential consequences.
Like nihilism and the appeal of totalitarian ideologies.
Because they offer a sense of meaning in a meaningless world.
Exactly, but Peterson critiques the idea that we can just invent our own values.
He says it's not that simple.
Right, he references Jung's insights on the collective unconscious and archetypes.
So there are deeper forces at play.
Yeah, and what's crucial here is the idea that our beliefs might need to be sacrificed when they no longer serve us.
So it's about adapting and evolving.
Exactly.
The book then emphasizes the idea of moral hierarchies.
Based on Jung's observation that whatever we prioritize most functions as our God.
So it's about what we place at the top of our value system.
Right, and Peterson suggests that meaning is found in the balance between chaos and order.
Guided by love and truth. So it's not about choosing one over the other.
No, it's about finding the balance.
And maintaining that balance takes precedence over everything else.
Even our own selfish desires.
This leads to the guiding principle: do what is meaningful, not what is expedient.
In other words, don't just do what's easy or convenient.
Do what's right, even if it's hard.
Exactly.
And this is illustrated through the story of a client with paranoid delusions,
Where honest responses, even if not encouraging, could build trust.
because he was being real with her.
Exactly. And it reinforces the importance of confronting the unexpected and speaking truthfully.
To prevent things from spiraling out of control.
Yeah, he warns against hiding baby monsters under the carpet.
Because they'll just grow bigger and more destructive.
Precisely.
The book also talks about the necessity of accepting our limitations. It uses the example of superheroes like Superman.
Who needs vulnerabilities to be relatable and admirable?
Right, if he was invincible, he wouldn't be interesting.
Exactly. And there's a thought experiment about artificially fortifying a child.
Removing all their weaknesses.
And the point is that what we love in people is often tied to their vulnerabilities.
It's what makes them human.
This leads to the question of how a good God can allow suffering.
Which is explored in Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov.
Right, where Ivan rejects a world with innocent suffering.
Peterson doesn't offer a simple answer.
No, but he emphasizes that love and connection often exist despite and sometimes because of our limitations.
It's in our imperfections that we find common ground.
So finally, the book offers a practical path toward improvement.
Okay, tell me more.
Peterson shares his daily practice of asking himself what small voluntary contribution he can make to make life better.
That's a good one.
It is. And it references Matthew 6.28, 6.33 about prioritizing higher values.
Trusting that other needs will be met.
And the Tao Te Ching talks about self-mastery and recognizing when you have enough.
So it's about taking small steps and being content with what you have.
The main message is that accepting your current situation and taking action is better than waiting for a magical solution.
Or staying stuck in inaction.
Right. Peterson concludes by saying that failing to take responsibility, make sacrifices, and live truthfully weakens you.
Leading to greater suffering.
But embracing those principles allows you to thrive and contribute to the world.
So to wrap up our deep dive into 12 Rules for Life, the book offers insights into navigating the complexities of existence.
By focusing on these fundamental principles,
Belief, order, responsibility, truth-telling, and accepting both chaos and our limitations.
it's a lot to take in.
It is. But hopefully this has given you a clearer understanding of the book's core ideas.
Without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly.
And for a final thought for you to ponder,
I'm listening.
what are those baby monsters in your own life that you've been avoiding?
The little problems we sweep under the rug.
Right. What small sacrifices could you make today to create a better future?
Whether it's a difficult conversation, a change in habit, or facing an uncomfortable truth.
And think about the balance of order and chaos in your life.
Are you leaning too far in one direction?
How can you find that sweet spot?
Thank you for sending us this source material.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found this deep dive valuable.
Absolutely.
If you have other complex topics or sources you want us to unpack,
We're here for it.
send them our way for future deep dives.
We love getting your suggestions.
Until next time, keep diving
Keep exploring.
and keep learning.
See you on the next Deep Dive.